민사박물관에서 근무하고 있는 김상렬입니다. 바쁜 일정에도 귀중한 시간을 내어주신 내빈 여러분께 감사의 인사를 전합니다. 기조 강연을 맡아주신 게리박 선생님, 이민자로서의 사는 삶과 자신의 분야에서의 활동상을 소개해 주실 피터리 작가님, 알렉산더 우가이 작가님, 김인숙 작가님, 강영식 배우님, 전우석 감독님께 깊이 감사드립니다. 2022년 올해는 우리 민족이 하와이로 공식 이민을 출발한 지 120주년을 맞이하는 해입니다. 이를 기념하기 위해 재외동포 재단과 연합뉴스의 후원과 세계 각국과 국내의 이민 관련 단체와 개인 소장가들의 도움을 받아 한국이민사박물관은 그날의 물결 재물포로 돌아오다 특별전을 개최하고 있습니다. 근본 토크콘서트는 향후 한인 이민사회를 이끌어갈 문화계에 종사하고 있는 차세대 한인을 초청하여 이민자로서 성장 과정과 각자 활동하고 있는 분야에 대한 이야기를 듣고자 마련했습니다. 1902년 12월 22일 인천항을 출발한 이민자들은 일본을 거쳐 끝없는 수평선 너머에도 계속 이어지는 바다를 건너 1903년 1월 13일 하와이에 도착했습니다. 우리 민족 첫 공식 이민의 여정입니다. 732만여 명에 달하는 한인들이 193개국에 살고 있습니다. 재외동포라 불리는 이들은 자랑스러운 한인으로 성장하여 모국과 이어져 있습니다. 현재 발전한 대한민국의 모습은 우리 국민이 그 특유의 성실함과 교육열을 기반으로 위기를 극복하고 창의력을 발휘하여 이루어낸 결과물이라고 할 수 있습니다. 그 발전에는 재외동포들의 모국을 향한 애국심도 크게 작용을 하였습니다. 재외동포들이 공헌이 없었다면 대한민국의 현재 발전된 모습은 미래일 수도 있는 것입니다. 이러한 올드타이머들의 노력은 차세대 한인들이 성장함에 있어 든든한 토대가 되었습니다. 이제 올드타이머의 노력을 이어받은 차세대 한인들은 모국과 거주국의 경계에 서 있기보다 모국과 거주국을 연결하며 자신의 분야에서 적극적으로 활동하고 있습니다. 오늘 여러분들은 그들의 이야기를 듣게 될 것입니다. 재외동포들에 대해서는 다양한 이해가 있습니다. 이번 토크콘서트가 낯선 환경 속에서 고군분투하면서도 모국을 위해 공헌하였던 올드타이머의 역사를 이어받은 차세대 한인들이 더 이상 경계에 서지 않고 뚜렷한 정체성을 기반으로 자신의 분야에서 발군의 역량을 발휘할 수 있도록 응원하는 기회가 되기를 바랍니다. 다시 한번 참석해 주신 모든 분께 감사의 말씀을 드리며 여러분의 가정에 건강과 행복이 늘 함께 하시기를 기원합니다. 감사합니다.
본격적으로 토크 콘서트의 막을 열도록 하겠습니다. 지금처럼 빠르게 변화하고 있는 세상에서 사실 정주라는 개념, 또 디아스포라라고 하는 개념은 우리에게 많은 것들을 시사할 수 있을 것이라 생각이 드는데요. 먼저 오늘 기조 강연을 진행해 주실 게리박 선생님을 모시고 디아스포라에 대해서 어떤 이야기를 열게 될지 한번 만나보도록 하겠습니다. 네, 선생님 앞으로 자리해 주시는 동안 선생님에 대한 간략한 소개를 드리겠습니다. 현재 게리박 작가님께서는 하와이 대학교 영문과의 명예 교수이시고 소설가이자 영화 제작자 그리고 재즈 피아니스트 등 다방면에서 활동을 하고 계십니다. 현재 박경리 토지문화관의 초청으로 원주에서 지내고 계신데요. 이번 주에 하와이로 돌아가실 계획이라고 합니다. 조부모님께서 1905년에 하와이로 도착을 하셔서 하와이 이민 3세로서 평안남도에서 하와이까지 내 가족의 여정이라고 하는 주제로 오늘 이야기를 준비해 주셨습니다. 네, 그러면 작가님께 마이크 넘기도록 하겠습니다.
네, 반갑습니다. I am from Hawaii, so we say aloha kako. So when I say aloha kako, you're supposed to say aloha back, okay? So aloha kako. Thank you so much for having me for the Incheon, for the Incheon Immigration Museum, for Mr. Kim and Ms. Yoon for having me here. I really appreciate this thing, and this is not my presentation. I think this is a presentation of my family, but also of a representation of the Korean diaspora to Hawaii. For so long, it's been really kind of unknown, not a kind of a forgotten story. And I went to the Immigration Museum when it first opened back about 10 years ago, I think, or something like that. And there was a wall of all the names, and I saw my Wei Harabaji's name, and I was like, oh, I just was struck. And I also want to thank the Pak Hyung-ni, the Toji Cultural Foundation, the Toji Munkwagwan at Wonju. Right now, I am a resident there, a writer resident, and it's such a great place. And I'm working on a new novel that connects actually Korea and Hawaii. It's about a Korean independence fighter who comes to Hawaii, settles down. It's based on a historical person, and also who befriends a Hawaiian independence fighter. And they become good friends, and the Hawaiian independence fighter actually then marries the Korean independence fighter's daughter, younger sister. And so it's a kind of a ongoing thing. It's a story about Hawaii, what's going on, So I just want to talk about, I'm not going to read the essay, because I went through this photo, and it took as long as the time allowed me. So I'm just going to do this thing, and then if you have any questions about this essay, because there's a Korean translation, of course, in English in the handout that you got. But I want to just give a quick historical perspective, and then my family as a representation of the Korean diaspora to Hawaii. So again, all of you know this, 1894, the Donghak Farmers' Rebellion. That's, when Korea was in the throes of modernization. And when the Donghak people, the people, the peasants, the farmers from Chola province, they rose up against the Chinese and the Japanese and their own Yangban too. And that's, to me, it was very significant. And then in 1903 to 1905, there was an immigration of Korea to Hawaii. Korean people went to Hawaii, and it stopped in 1905 because the Japanese government, although officially, of course, Joseon wasn't annexed by Japan until 1910, but still the Japanese presence was here, and they controlled a lot of the things. But they had stopped because I guess they were thinking about they want to use the Koreans as their cannon fodder or working people. And then this is a picture of the the SS Gaelic, one of the boats that brought Koreans to the Hawaiian Islands. Yeah? This is a headline from the local newspaper, the Honolulu Commercial Advertiser, circa January 1903. The Koreans are coming, 102 subjects of the Hermit Kingdom reach here to try their luck at plantation labor. And my boat harabaji, my way harabaji and my harabaji boat came in 1905. They were among the last boats to come to to Hawaii, I'm sorry. So this is a picture of my way harabaji when he first came to Hawaii and to Maui. That's him right here with the bow tie. His name was Rang Ung-wan. I think that's how they pronounce it in North Korea or in Pyeongnam-do. Yeah? He was born 1883 and died 1958 from Pyeongnam-do. And these are all the members too of the boat that he came over at that time. And again, this is one of the last boats. There was, I think, one or two more boats after this, but then the Japan stopped it. They tried to interfere with everything in Korea. So you see all this children here too. This is my way halmoni, Im Ok-sun. She's from Kaesong, Gyeonggi-do. And this is when they got married in Hawaii, in Wahiawa, Hawaii. Wahiawa is known as sort of like a Korean village. There were so many Koreans in Wahiawa on the plantations. This is around circa 1913. My way halmoni is from Kaesong. She was an orphan at 4 years old, around 3, 4, 5 years old, around there. Her parents were teachers, Songsangnim, in Kaesong. And according to my oral history, they were killed. They were murdered by the Japanese police. We're not sure why. Maybe they spoke out. I don't know. Oops, I'm sorry. I moved the head. And they, so when she was 4 years old, her parents all died, and she was an orphan. So she was raised in a Christian orphanage in Kaesong. And she wasn't taught how to read or write, even though her parents, of course, were teachers, but she wasn't able to learn how to read and write. So later on, in Hawaii, of course, if she wanted to write a letter to her friends in Korea or whatever, she always asked my father to write for her or, to read something, a letter that was written in Korean. So that's my grandparents, Im Ok-sun and Rang Un-wan, when they got married, their wedding picture. This is a few years after, circa 1924. So that's my way harabaji and way halmoni. This is my samchon, my imo. This is my oma, my mother. So this is my samchon here is Larry Chongguk Young. This is Robert Pokguk Young. My imo is Stella Chongsuk Young. And my mother is Etta Chonghee Young. My grandparents never gave them English names. So their English names were either given to them by their teachers in school, or in the case of my mom, my imo gave my mother her English name was Etta. So that's how it is. So this is the pineapple field. My way harabaji and way halmoni were growing pineapples before the crash in 1928. And after that, he went bankrupt because of the crash, and then he had to go back to work on a plantation. And so, yeah, this is my mom. I miss her. This is my way halmoni is that corner over there. This is my way harabaji's family. in Pyeongnam-do, circa 1926. My Wei Harabaji's father was sick, and so he couldn't leave the pineapple farm plantation that he was working on. So he sent my Wei Halmani to go, and my samchon is here. This is James Songguk Young, and this is basically my Wei Harabaji's tongsang, yeah, his younger brothers, and this is his family. So it's my family, but I never got to meet them. My samchon is still alive in Hawaii. He doesn't remember going to North Korea at all. He doesn't remember at all. He was too young. I remember this cousin of his, so it's I guess my uncle in some ways. There's this Kunobi. That's all I know. But this is the Rang family in Pyeongnam-do. This is when my grandfather went to Pyeongnam-do, his village, in 1931. And this is my Wei Harabaji right here, behind the apples. So this, oops, sorry. So this is all my family that I have never met. They all, because of the Korean War and so on like that, the demarcation lines, the DMZ, they're all my mother's side, my Wei Harabaji's family. And he went to his village at that time. My mother told me that he brought along 2 sewing machines. He brought some, I forgot some other things. And then he also had some money to buy some of the land so that the villagers, his family, could use as for rice and so on, for the pyo, Yeah, so this is, again, we have no connection because of the war, because all these things, but this is, I'm related to all these people here, and I don't know them, I've never, so, I would like one day to actually, to meet some of them if they're still around, or at least my relatives and stuff, yeah? So this is the family that my Wei Harabaji, Wei Halmani, they built. This is my village. This is the village that raised me. It's my Wei Harabaji, Wei Halmani. This is my father, my mother, and this is my mother's family, her brothers and her sisters. These are my sachon, my cousins. I wasn't born yet. This is around 1949. But you can also see that in the second generation, they were marrying out already. They were marrying out, not marrying Koreans. My auntie, this man here was the one that went to North Korea, James Songguk Young. He married his wife, Auntie Margaret, who's Filipino. My uncle Robert Poguk Young, he married Auntie Lena, who is of Chinese ancestry. Later on, this uncle, his name is Joseph Myongguk Young. He married a Hawaiian woman. And my uncle here, John Songguk Young, he married Japanese. And when he married a Japanese woman, my grandparents were angry. They were really mad. And they didn't like her. But later on, she was a very nice person, and they accepted her, of course, of course, there's reasons why they didn't like her at the beginning, So, of here, my cousin here, she's still alive. This cousin is still alive. My auntie Onhi, Rosemary Onhi, she's still alive. She lives in Las Vegas. My auntie Elaine Songhee Young, she's still living. And my uncle here, we call him, he's Joseph Myongguk. We call him Uncle Meng. He's still living too. And my uncle Songguk up here. everyone else has passed away, but this is the village that raised me. I owe to them all my character, my sense of education, my sense of my being. It's all due to this village here, my kajok. So this is later on, 2030. Most of these people here have passed away. This is my uncle that went to North Korea. She's still living. This is my mother. And I was very close to my mother's side. My mother's side we're very close. So that's comparison. This is my family, my immediate family now. It's my 3 children, my sonjak, my grandchildren. This is my backyard. He's not very happy. He doesn't want to be photographed. That's my Changnam Ado. He married a Korean adoptee, and so she's very into her Korean culture. She went to Yonsei for a little while. She tried to learn Korean language, and she named her oldest son Jayu. So that's his name. One of my aunties asked, "Oh, Jayu is a nice name, but what's his English name?" And I looked at her and I said, "Jayu. Jayu is his English name." But of course, it's a Korean name. So that's my 3 children. So now I'm going to switch to my Pak side, my father's side. My father wasn't very close to his side of the family, so I didn't really get to know him too well. But we have some pictures. This is my Kunabaji, Pak Chin Han. And this is my Chin Harabaji and Chin Harmony. They're from Anju, Pyeongnam-do. And this is circa 1910, around there. I don't know their full names. I just know that's my Pak Chin Harabaji. And this is a picture of Songshio Daehaikyo. It used to be in Pyongyang, but they moved to the Gangnam area. And this is in Wailu, Oahu, so they entertained them. This is my Harabaji, my Pak Harabaji in the cap. He was with the Salvation Army. And the people in the back there are some members of the provisional government and so on like that. I know this his name is An Won-gyu. He was an independence, fighter for Korean independence. It was 1910. These are students from Songshio Daehaikyo. Pineapple, sugarcane, Hawaiian sugarcane in the back. This is the Korean Hall in Wailua, Korean Hall in Wailua, Hawaii. Wailu was also considered another place where there was a lot of Koreans. In fact, today there is a Korean cemetery that some of my friends are sort of taking care of. It's really sad, you go to some of these graveyards where there's concentration of Korean immigrant workers, and they've lost contact with their families. And so many of the tombstones, no one comes to visit. It's very, very sad. And you also see a lot of children with Korean names that are buried there. And, the Korean immigrants, when they first came, they didn't have very good medical help. If you were sick, chances are you might die. And you can see that in the graveyards in Oahu, This woman here is my grandmother, my father's mother, Kim Suk-an, from Wonsan, Hamyongnam-do. And this skirt here, that's my komo, Pak Chin-ok. And I believe this is my kunamaji, Pak Chin-mun. And so this is circa 1920 because my father wasn't born yet. I think maybe she might have been pregnant with him. But these are Korean women. They went to this Korean hall. I understand that my 할머니 actually knew some English, so she would teach. According to my 큰아버지, he said that my grandmother would teach them English, you know, a little bit of phrases and so on. And this is the Pak family around 1925 in Honolulu. My grandfather, Pak Ho-byung, he had 3 wives. His first wife, he had my 큰아버지 Pak Chin-han, and then she died. She passed away. He married again to my grandmother Kim Suk-an, and so he had 3 children. My auntie here, my komo, Pak Chin-ok. This is my father, Pak Chin-chan, and this is my 큰아버지 Pak Chin-mun. And 6 months after my father was born, my 할머니 passed away, appendicitis. And so my grandfather remarried to Pei Ik-suk and had 4 more children. There's only 2 here, but 2 more later on. This is my 큰아버지's wife. Her name is Siberia Choi Pak. And arguably, I say arguably because we're not so sure, but she was actually born on the ship coming over. So she is arguably the first Korean to be born in Hawaii, in America perhaps. We don't know, but we can say that she was one of the first Koreans to be born in the United States territory. Of all these people here, only actually is considered my cousin, but she's much older than me. It's Betty Jane Pak Chun is her married name. So her name is Siberia because she came over to SS Siberia. From her mother came over from Korea to Hawaii. So my Pak family was living in Hawaii, but my 할아버지 wanted to go back to Korea. So because he was a member of the church, the Salvation Army, he moved his family to Kimhae. But then when I think this is my 큰아버지 Pak Chin-mun got into Gyeonggi High School, they moved to Seoul, in Palpadong, where the blue house is around the Palpadong. And this is one of the outings in this Wombido, right down the street here, 1937. And this is another outing. My 큰아버지 is right here. He's Pak Chin-mun. And this is in the Sunjuk-kyo in Kaesong, the very famous bridge, you know. And I have this picture here because this is where the Korean National Association, or the Kuminhue, was located. The last part of their location on Rook Avenue. They published the newspaper, the Kuminbo. I spent quite a number of weekends when I was a child here, because my 할아버지, 할머니 were members, and so were my dad, my father and mother were members of this organization. And so I have many memories in this place, and I talk about this in my essay that I wrote. So we don't have time. Maybe we can have questions if you want to ask me anything later on in the program. But if you want to contact me, if you want to ask me about anything, this is my email at gpakhawaii.edu. Yep. So 감사합니다.
자, 기억은 굉장히 중요한 소재인 것 같습니다. 앞서 감독님께서도 기억을 소재로 글동량이라고 하는 영화를 만들어 주셨듯이 다음 소개드릴 작가님 또한 우리 기억에 대한 출발점을 가지고 작업을 계속 이어가고 계시는 작가님이십니다. 알렉산드르 우가이 작가님을 다음 순서로 맞이하도록 하겠습니다. 네, 소개해드리겠습니다. 카자흐스탄에서 출생하신 고려인 3세로 오가이 작가님께서는 현재 카자흐스탄과 한국을 오가며 생활하고 계십니다. 사진과 비디오 아트를 매개로 1937년 고려인 강제 이주의 기억과 현대 고려인 디아스포라를 주제로 작품 활동을 해오고 계십니다. 지금 열리고 있는 부산 비엔날레에도 출품을 하시고 계신데요. 그럼 알려지지 않은 기한이라는 주제로 작가님을 만나보도록 하겠습니다. 큰 박수로 맞이해주시기 바랍니다.
Thank you so much. Thank you. My name is Alexander Ugay, and I'm an artist, and I would like to share some of my thoughts and experiences of art practice in terms of the rethinking the Soviet past in the Korean diaspora. My ancestors were deported to Kazakhstan in 1937, so I was born and raised in Kazakhstan. Thus, I belong to the third generation of Korean from the beginning of Soviet time. I will start with the work made in 2012 called Model for Assembly. And it's kind of iconographic map reflecting the collective memory of the diaspora in a certain period of time, partly based on my feelings and experience, as well as on the survey we conducted together with my colleague Iso Yang in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan the same year. The horizontal line displays a timeline from the past to the future, and the size of the images shows the relevance of the fact. The larger picture, the more important the event for the diaspora. Obviously there are two most significant events. The first one is the deportation of 1937, and the second one is a successful life in the late Soviet Union. And the last one takes a key place in the identity and memory of the community. The problem is that on the one hand, Russia and the Soviet Union were a shelter for the many peasants amid rising famine, lack of land, natural disasters, and later for the political refugees in the period of 1910 to 45. On another hand, there were alienations and traumas caused by the totalitarian policy of the power. Perhaps that's why it's such contradictory, almost schizophrenic situation, critical reflection on the Soviet. For many people who was born in the Soviet or grew up in the post-Soviet, it's a very difficult gesture. The comprehension that millions of victims and huge efforts of several generations were in vain, as well as the dreams and beliefs turned out to be false, is really unbearable, almost unthinkable situation. It means that Soviet is not just a sentimental nostalgia, it's in a manner the last opportunity to preserve a sense of rightness and meaning. In a way, it's kind of compensate for the traumas and failures that are certainly present in the fates of post-Soviet people in general and Korean diaspora in particular. Thus, fragments of the imperial consciousness find a fertile ground. Also, it must be said that Soviet Union in the 20th century was a unique phenomenon. We know now perfectly what it leads to, but during the period of Japanese occupation or in the struggle of oppressed multitude, Soviet ideas was kind of response and solution to the challenge of the time. and I wouldn't like to blindly blame or justify those times and people. I just want to understand why this happened and what can be done now and for future. I will not talk much about why it's important to rethink the Soviet and how unproductive the imperial consciousness and politics in our days. I'm sure it's perfectly understandable when you are watching like news from the Ukraine. And I would like to introduce a wonderful poem of Stanislav Lee. And I want to read it in Russian. Не стало корейских имен, остались короткие наши фамилии. Но по-прежнему пища родная горчит, и дед на вопросы о прошлом молчит. I think the poem reflects three essential points. The first is ambivalence and indecisiveness in its issue of identity, and I briefly mentioned before. More than 30 years have passed since the collapse of USSR, but the question of national or post-national identity remains. In Kazakhstan, I think in other Central Asian countries, we are identified as a Korean, but in Korea we are Korean. So Russian name, Korean surname, Kazakh passport, post-Soviet consciousness. The second is the silence as explicit sign of trauma and displacement. And the third is reference to the fact of chance to save the past and thereby understand the present. Spiciness of the food is the material embodiment of the idea belongs to something or to be someone. Spiciness is like a timeless vertical that does not fall under the pressure of time and progress thanks to existential effort. I think the problem of rethinking the Soviet through let's say, the colonial optics or through the beginning of conversation after long silence is the lack of practical tools, methods or language to overcome those temporal, traumatic and ontological gaps. What practices and language I'm talking about? It can be switching of attention from large narratives to small ones, from official history to family archives and memories, sensibility to things and surfaces with the traces of memory, or traces of time. Substantially to instill an interest to the practice of deciphering the past and the documenting the present, because our now become the past for the future generation. The theories and practice of post-memory also are very significant. When the traumatic experience of the past associated with the violence or various forms of oppression can be passed on to the next generation through the images, imagination, emotional involvement, receiving from the living witnesses, places, objects, literature, art. Thus, image and imagination can be crucial in this process. I'm close to the idea of Walter Benjamin. A history does not consist of narratives, but of images. Indeed, images can fill the voids of and lagoons of the memory and identity. Image is difficult to control and impossible to completely exhaust. Herein lies its weak power and liberating potential. Representatives of political and historical science may accuse such an approach of profanation and distortion of truth, to which my response, everything is construct, both science, history, identities, and so on. As you understand, the official approved by authorities history and narratives will not disappear in any case. It's more about importance of being able to give a voice to those who couldn't tell their story, to give a place to those who could not write their book. Another work is called Obscuraton number 10. Yeah, and for the beginning, a few words what it is. The Obscuraton is a camera obscura of various configurations, equipped with the larger number of holes through which the inner space covered with the photo paper is exposed. You see this inner space, and then it's all inner space covered by the paper and then closed, and it becomes the camera for to make a photograph. And the camera is installed in ideologically or historically significant spaces, while its form is correlated to thematically and structurally with the specific source, like photograph, sculpture, or architectural object, landscape motif. This obscuraton in shape of stamping press was alternately installed in two crucial places for Korean diaspora, uniting their light through the 52 holes. So this is the 52 lenses, let's say. The first 26 holes were exposed in Tumon River on the border North Korea and Russia. The crossing point of the first settlers in 1860 and another 26 holes were opened to the foot of Mount Bastobek in Kazakhstan. The first drop-off pointing during the deportation in 1937. For me, this is an alternative way of documenting and archiving. The objects and photographic images escape from unambiguous interpretation and rigid ideological framework. But at the same time, owing to the analog connection between place, object, and image, it does not dissolve into the pure abstraction, but remains as evidence, as a witness who can say, I was there. And some process of the exposure and some images I got. And you can see the different shapes and also the holes of opposite spaces and walls. Another work I wanted to show, it's called More Than 100,000 Times. I made this video 2 years ago when I was working at the factory, and this video is attempt to capture invisible things associated with the return and repetition in labor. I asked my colleagues and acquaintances to show the movements of their work which they repeat many times per day, but without real tools and outside of the factory or workspaces. It was important because a certain amount of abstraction revealed another perception and meaning of seemingly familiar things. The issue of the labor alienation remains, but a phenomenon of repetition comes to fore. Repetition as a structure of meaning and mechanism of memory and oblivion. On the one hand, repetition is, using the language of psychoanalysis, is symptom of neurosis and kind of unlearned lesson which will lead to the same mistakes time after time till it's learned. But sometimes repetition can act as a return and difference. The difference between like chronos as an empty linear time and kairos, regained time and time of meaning. The return, unlike a sequences of endless repetition, it's unique, and it consists of two parts: the event by itself and the repetition of the timeless vertical. Maybe we can turn on the video. The topic of my speech is unknown return. It's coming from Alain Badiou in the book Century, where he tries to bring us to an understanding of the modes of thinking such as communism, Nazism, liberalism that made the 20th century such a destructive and murderous. Korean diaspora is fully equal to the century in all its passions and ideas. In fact, we are the result of this project. Our passionality in 5 generations, wandering somewhere between a sense of guilt and justice, was formed in era of unconditional victories and defeats. But this duality is anti-dialectical. As Alain Badiou said, when he defined the century as a time of almost unthinkable violence, it turns out that we are both a victim and executioner in one person. The unknown return is the movement towards to themselves after catastrophe. It's a rethinking the poetry after Holocaust. It's an existential wandering in searching of hope. In our case, one cannot return to homeland as to promised land, because this place exists solely in time and imagination rather than in actual space. An unknown return lies in the ability to detect form of collectivity in the ability to detect form of collectivity different from the existing ones, to find the way to be Korean beyond the stigma of North and South or friend of war, to do justice to differences while maintaining the need for collective form of life. Thank you.